y'all, it's Laura, and I am back with a really fun layout using the mood board that you saw at the beginning of this video. Now, as you can see, already with my background paper, I am deviating heavily from the color scheme of the mood board. And that's because I don't do monochromatic, I don't have any snow pictures, and winter isn't really that wintry for us here in Mississippi. So I decided instead to draw some other things from the mood board. And I pulled in things like the dogs. There were two little dogs on the mood board. You may have missed them, but they're there. I also pulled in wood grain, which I used to back all three of these photos. And I pulled in that kind of rustic, vintagey style, and definitely going to be using a lot of that on this one because I'm using 49th and Market, which is a company that I have never used before, and they have a beautiful new Wedgwood collection that is this background paper, and I really wanted to dive into it. It just looked really interesting, very masculine, a lot of nature themes, which I thought fit perfectly with this mood board, as almost all of those pictures were taken outside, if not all of them were outside. And so I thought, I'm bringing in the feel of the mood board, if not the color scheme. The other thing I was trying to keep in mind is that I don't really enjoy scrapping monochromatic layouts. I can. I did a couple of them for Scraptember in September here on the channel, but it's not my go-to style. It's not something that I really enjoy, and so I do tend to stray from a color scheme that has only one color to a mix of colors. Now, I'm stretching it a bit, because if you look at the mood board very closely, the right side is very white and wood, and it has a hint of blue. The snow has kind of a hint of blue. So that's where I'm pulling in this blue from the background. The left side of the mood board had a very warm tone and kind of went from a coral pink to a yellow in the sunset in the sky. And so I'm pulling in this yellowy color, yellowy, I don't know, it's kind of a rust color almost. And it's a stretch, guys. I fully acknowledge it is a stretch, but I do think it stays true to the overall feel of the mood board, some of the details, and I'm scrapbooking my dog, so you can't go wrong there, right? I have 3 photos of our dog Strider, who sadly passed a couple of years ago, and this was just a really funny set of pictures. My son Joseph has this little dog that he often would put next to Strider, and Strider was more than fine with it. It's a soft little plushy type dog, and he decided to put it on Strider's back and then on Strider's head. And Strider is the most patient dog on the planet. He could care less. He was just completely chill, paying no attention. He was the best dog we've ever had. And I definitely think that it was good for my kids as little ones to grow up around him, because they learned how to be gentle with the dog, but the dog also was very patient with them and allowed them to learn how to treat a dog and be as gentle as possible with them. Now, these pictures were taken shortly before he passed away, but he wasn't feeling well. He was really, really struggling. But he still had that patient, just kind demeanor to him, and I think it was really nice that the kids still played with him. They still tried to encourage him to come and play with them, even if it was not in a running and jumping sort of way anymore. It was just a gentle, sweet little goofing around kind of play. And his face, he always made the best expressions. This poor dog, so long suffering. Oh, but he also loved them to pieces. So I'm creating 2 main clusters on this layout, getting a little distracted, sorry. And the big one is along the right side. I have these beautiful, beautiful florals and tucked in some leaves behind them. I really built up this right side as kind of a boundary or border for my photos to sort of lean on. And then I'm creating a smaller cluster over here on the left side, and then we'll have that small sentiment in the center just to kind of help tie the photos together. I really wanted this to have the feel of an old vintage album where you just kind of stuck things in like pressed flowers and maybe just some fabric or a piece of parchment or just whatever you had, and just kind of pieced it together around these photos. And I just thought this had a very vintage look to it, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Now, I don't really go for vintage very often, but masculine vintage I do really like. And so I definitely wanted to experiment with this style a little bit and see how I could make it work. Now, this collection does not have a lot of embellishments. The paper pack comes with 2 pages of punch outs, which are mostly florals and frames. And then there's also a pack of layering pieces that had some of the little little tabs and things in it, as well as larger layers. Now, my daughter Olivia came over to investigate. I forgot this part. And she pointed at the photos and asked who it was, because of course he's passed away now, and I told her it was Strider. And so she just had to check that out. She loves dogs, absolutely adores them, and she loved Strider to pieces, but I'm sure she doesn't remember him anymore. It's been a couple of years since he passed away, but that was just a really cute moment. She forgot she did that. So I'm going ahead with my gray archival ink, and I'm going to ink up this title. And as you can see, the big difference when I do so, because this background is so busy, I want this title to stand out a little bit. And this title too came from the punch outs in the paper pack. And so I really wanted to stick to this collection as much as possible. And so I'm going to go ahead and ink it with some archival ink in gray. I didn't go to black because I still wanted it to meld with the background. And I felt like if I used black to ink the outside edges, that it would be really stark. And so this is more of a gray. And once I get it completely inked up, I am going to pop it up onto some foam just so it stands above the photos and has more of a place of importance on the layout. It also adds a little bit of dimension to the page, a little bit of interest, because there are things at different levels. So that's a great tip if you're not sure how to add a little bit of interest, but you don't want to add a ton of bulk to your layout, is you can use just a little bit of foam behind the title, behind a photo, behind one special embellishment maybe, and just kind of mark these as important parts of the layout, and it will help to distinguish the different levels of the layout. It gives it an appearance of being more layered and thus more interesting. So it won't make you watch all of that being put up onto foam, but just wanted to show you more or less how I did it. So now that it's all in place, I'm going to add these last few bits and pieces, trying out a few different areas for things. I did end up moving that sentiment down just because I thought that it defined the 3 photos a little bit too much, and I do want them to feel like a cluster together. And adding in these little paper sequins, which also came in that punch out paper at the end of the paper pack. So I punched out all of these individual little paper sequins, and I'm going to start gluing them down all over the place to give these nice little details and add in a little bit of fun around the page. Now, what I love about these is they look like actual sequins. They look real, except of course that they're paper thin, but it's a very, very cool look. I've never seen this before, and I was excited to play with them. I have a feeling this may have been something that used to be very popular, maybe in the early 2000s, possibly? I'm not sure. I didn't do a lot of trendy scrapbooking back then and wasn't really up on the cool stuff at that time, and so I think I may have missed out on these earlier in scrapping, but they are so cool. They look real. I'm telling you, they look completely like real sequins, but they are not. So I'm going to be making some smaller clusters around my larger clusters and adding in these little details under things. They're tucked on underneath, and then they're on top of other things, and this creates this layering that I was talking about. It's like the idea that there's so many layers and this is so thick, and it's really not. It's just paper and photos, so it's actually extremely flat. But because I'm tucking things under other things and layering some pieces on top of the photos, I'm giving the impression that there is so much depth to this layout. And when you're looking at it, it does have that look like, oh, there's so much here. As you can see, someone put scissors on my desk there. I am the hive of the house when I'm scrapping. The kids love to come over and see what I am doing, and quite often I will either have to cut out a full head coming into the camera screen as they look over to see what I'm doing, or often little things will go randomly moving on my desk and you'll be like, oh, that was weird. Why did that move? Yeah, there was a kid involved somewhere. But this layout is for our A Cherry on Top blog hop, and we, the design team, are challenged to use this mood board to come up with a layout or project for today, find inspiration from it somewhere. I know at least one of these ladies will take on the color scheme of this gorgeous mood board. It is not me. It won't be me. But I do think that I brought in enough of those little bits of theme and general overall feel of the mood board, and I think I captured that pretty well. Finishing off my scattering and splattering with some Nuvo drops in gold. I love Nuvo drops because they are very controlled splatter, so you can put them wherever you like. I tend to dot them around my tiny embellishments here, and I add little trails behind my butterflies, and then I'll come in with some Heidi Swap Color Shine and splatter away everywhere for an uncontrolled splatter. So this layout is almost done. Be sure to check out my blog, www.takingascenicroute.com, to see the still photos and read some details about the layout, and it'll also have a link to Erica Rose Creates, who is the next stop on the blog hop, and it'll all end at A Cherry on Top's blog, and they have a giveaway, so be sure to check that out. It's always really cool to see what everybody thinks, how they've all interpreted the challenges differently, and I think it's really, really cool to see how we all scrap so differently, even with the same inspiration. So using some ink on the edges of my page to distress it, and that's it. Until next time, bye!